Good day, dear attendees. I am Mohammad Tafikur Rahman, welcoming you in my brand new lecture series on using the Delphi method as a powerful research tool. You have already received the course outline that introduces you to this course and describes the learning outcomes, course structure, and course plan. And by now, I hope my research and teaching profile has become known to you already. So instead of spending more time on such introductions, let's jump directly into the lecture series and get benefited with its content. I thank you very much for choosing this course to learn the Delphi technique as a research tool and apply it afterward. I will start the presentation by outlining the lecture series in the next slide and proceed further with the module 1 in detail. As mentioned in the course outline, this lecture series is organized into 7 modules. Module 1, Introduction to the Delphi Method. Here we will be discussing the history of the Delphi method and learning its characteristics, differences with other methods, and areas to consider while designing the study. Module 2, How to do the Delphi study. Here we will be discussing the design and process of typical Delphi studies, problem definition, and expert panel formulation. Module 3, data collecting processes will be discussed in this module, such as brainstorming, literature study, questionnaire formulation, and interviews conduction. Module 4, data analysis and Delphi rounds. Here we will check different phases of this study, consensus, stability, subsequent rounds, and stopping criteria. Module 5, this study's results will be discussed in this module. Topic covered here are understanding results, validation, reliability, strength, and limitations. Module 6, different variants of Delphi techniques will be covered in this module along with concluding remarks. And finally, in module 7, I will present my Delphi study here as an example. I will tell you how I stepped forward to conduct such a study for modeling a decision support system for humanitarian relief distribution in my PhD research. So let's begin the actual session today by knowing the history and basics of the Delphi method. History of the Delphi method. The original Delphi method was developed by Norman Dalkey of the RAND Corporation in the 1950s for a US-sponsored military project. Dalkey states that the goal of the project was to solicit expert opinion to the selection of an optimal target system for reducing the munitions output by a prescribed amount. In this project, the research team was trying to improve the use of expert opinion in policy making at the RAND Corporation following the Second World War. Delphi was consulted for forecasting the future so that correct and timely decisions could be made before embarking upon a major course of action, such as waging war. Hence, subject matter experts can be solicited for their opinions or expectations about the likelihood of future events or scenarios of interest to the RAND Corporation. Starting from military-related projects, development of Delphi method continued in various disciplines and organizations, and thus information about this method began to be published in the open literature in early 1960s. Now, characteristics of the Delphi method. There are 5 major characteristics of the Delphi method, such as expert panel, iterative process, control feedback, anonymity of Delphi participants, and statistical aggregation of group response. We will discuss them in detail in the next, since understanding them is important in order to conduct this study. But in summary, I can tell you that expert panels are formed with selected domain experts representing a broad spectrum of opinion on the topic or the issue being examined through multiple iteration or rounds of questionnaires and feedback reports that allows for a quantitative analysis and interpretation of data. Delphi participants are usually anonymous and free to express their opinions without undue social or group pressures. Expert panels formulation. Here, the Delphi technique requires the use of experts. The criteria for the expertise shout is defined within a study context, and a panel of experts who meet the criteria is invited to participate. The level of expertise shout varies according to the needs of the study and could vary from the domain experts in comparison to the general population, though the experts being leading world figures in the areas in question. The researcher's task is to define and justify the criteria for expertise in their study. Where a Delphi is used for forecasting or to consider a specialized or highly technical area, a homogeneous group of specialists is required. Conversely, where the Delphi is being used to consider broader policy issues, it can be advantageous to focus on a heterogeneous group of experts with a wider understanding of the area in question. In selecting an expert panel, consideration also needs to be given to the size of the panel involved. Here, there are no prescribed numbers for panel constitution. The literature says it can range from just 4 experts to over 1,000. However, the researcher for their particular Delphi study must carefully consider the appropriate panel size based on the topic or issue of investigation. Iteration with control feedback. This second characteristic clearly distinguishes the approach from the questionnaire survey. Delphi studies, by definition, continue for over 1 round. As responses are received in each round, these are collated and fed back to the participants as a collective group response. This gives participants the opportunity to amend their previous viewpoint in the light of collective opinion and provide future comments if desired as the rounds progress. Participants' anonymity. Depending on the format of the Delphi, anonymity is possible at a varying level. Where the Delphi is performed as a typical survey, respondents can remain completely unknown to each other, with there being no potential for other participants to ascribe a response to any individual. Variations are possible when the participants come face to face with each other and in highly specialized areas with limited numbers of available expertise. Participants could logically deduct who their fellow respondents are. In such a situation, participants cannot remain fully anonymous to each other, although responses should be handled so that their originators cannot be identified, and thus retaining the anonymity characteristics of the Delphi method. Statistical group response. Linked to the iteration with the control feedback is the characteristics of statistical group response. Here, the collated information or opinions expressed in each previous round are statistically summarized for each item under consideration and subsequently presented back to the participants. This allows participants to compare their personal opinion with that of the collective groups. There are different ways and tools available for doing the statistical summary and presenting them, including ranking according to group mean, median, and percentage scores. Such presentations frequently involve the use of visual analog scale, such as the Likert scale. It is also possible in Delphi study to convert qualitative interviews to quantitative ranking. Now, comparing Delphi with other methods, other group decision methods also have an established history and following. For example, the nominal group technique and integrating group method are commonly used. The Delphi method offers several advantages over other group methods. For example, first, the idea generation in the Delphi is individual based, anonymous, and independent. Thus, panel members are not swayed by group pressures or vocal members, as can easily happen with NGT and IgM. A second but related advantages is that interpersonal conflict and communication problems are virtually non-existent because panel members do not interact. Third, a practical consideration is that unlike NGT and IgM, travel to a central location is not required in a Delphi study. Thus, travel costs and the problem of coordination to get everyone at the same place at the same time are not factors. Finally, the use of successive rounds in a Delphi study enables the moderator to build upon earlier results and to maintain focus in the study. Finally, concepts to consider. Here we discuss the important areas or concepts to consider under these given titles when designing a Delphi study. Expert panel. Avoid labeling participants as expert without being explicit about participants' expertise. Consider the homogeneity or heterogeneity of the sample when deciding sample size. Iteration. There are 3 rounds of iteration Delphi are optimal. Use few well-structured open-ended questions or a modified approach to develop initial statement in rounds. Optimal number of response categories of the Likert scale lie between 4 to 7. Be aware that omitting data can introduce bias and prevent full analysis of results. Consider providing a no comment option if participants have different backgrounds and knowledge. Participant feedback. Consider providing visual feedback, for example, bar charts or tabular format to provide information on the distribution of data. Consensus. Define if consensus is being used to determine if agreement exists or as a stopping guide. Differentiate between stability, agreement, and consensus. Stability of response should not be confused with the consensus. Lastly, attrition. Consider only recruiting participants with an interest in the topic. Ensure participants are fully informed of the commitments and the process of the Delphi study. A non-disclosure agreement can also be signed between researchers and panel members. So this is it from me for module 1. So by now we know the history of the Delphi method, its main characteristics, and important considering notions while designing the study. We have also gained an overall understanding of how this method comes over other commonly used group decision making methods. We will be discussing and learning how to conduct a Delphi study in the next module. Thank you very much for your kind attention.